Hey everyone, Huion here. Today I'm reviewing the Huion Kamvas Gen 3 pen display released in January 2025, this month. First of all, disclaimer, this is a review unit provided by the company, and in this video I'll just present to you my findings so that you can decide whether this is worth the money. And the price of this pen display at the time of review is $499 US, which may or may not include free shipping depending on where you are, and you get 1 year warranty. Now this video review is going to be quite long, so if you want to save time, you can actually check out the text review that I have already written. By the way, this is not a touch screen display. So the link to my text review will be in the video description below. And I'm going to start this review by telling you what are the improvements, what are the upgrades over the previous Kamvas 16, which was released in 2021. So let's see. The resolution has increased from 1080p to 1440, so we are looking at 2560 by 1440 pixels, so the visuals, they look noticeably sharper, but affected slightly by the matte surface, which I'll talk more about later on. And the matte screen protector has been replaced with this matte glass surface. So this is very unlikely for the plastic pen tip to scratch. The USB-C port by the side is no longer recessed into the body, which means you can use any third-party USB-C video cable if you want to. There are two dials added, one here at the top and one at the bottom, in addition to the hotkeys. And this new pen is using PenTech 4. It supports tilt and 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, up from 8,000. And this pen display has higher brightness. From what I've measured, the maximum brightness is 240 nits, which is up from 195 nits. And it is possible to get the maximum brightness with one USB-C cable connection, which is really nice. As usual, let me give you the bottom line up front. This is a beautiful pen display. It's well made, the build quality is solid. The hotkeys and the two dials are useful if you have use for them. The pen performance is excellent. This pen is really sensitive, and that's how thick the brush is. And you can draw with minimal pressure to get the very thin lines and press down hard to get really broad strokes like this. There is no diagonal line wobble or jitter. Pressure and tilt works really well. The matte glass surface is nice to draw on, and this provides subtle tactile drawing experience. This pen display has been color calibrated at the factory, which is very convenient for those who do not have a color calibrator. And I have also color calibrated this pen display, and I measured color support for 100% sRGB, 90% Adobe RGB, and a maximum brightness of 240 nits, which is higher than what I usually use, which is around 150 to 200 nits. Downsides: the matte glass surface does not have much color noise or anti-glare sparkle, but it does affect sharpness slightly. But overall, I would say the visuals still look pretty sharp. So this is a minor downside, but this is certainly better compared to the quality you get with matte screen protectors. So the bottom line is, this pen display looks good and it works well. Now Huion is a company that releases pen displays almost every year. So with each new release or with each new product, there are improvements. And with this latest pen display, they have improved it to the extent or to the point where it is quite difficult for me to find negative things to say. Yeah, if you look at the early reviews for the earlier pen displays from Huion, I have a long list of pros and a long list of cons. But right now, there are many pros and the list of cons has reduced to just 1 or 2, which is very impressive. Oh, by the way, this is my room. I've just moved to a new place, and later I will talk more about the drawing experience on this pen display while I draw my room. And now let's move on to the full review. Let's look at the items included with the purchase. This is how the packaging box looks. Pentec 4 is advertised here at the corner. There is nothing much on the back except for the QR codes to Huion's social media pages. And now let's unbox this. It says that the pen display has already been color calibrated at the factory, and these are the results. The average delta E for sRGB is 0.86, so anything less than 2 is good, less than 1 is great. That's the pen display, which I will unwrap later. So let's take out all the items first. That's the user guide, one artist glove, microfiber cleaning cloth, the pen stand. Twist open the pen case and you can find 10 replacement pen tips, and it seems like Huion did not include any felt tips. So the pen tip remover is located at the back, and this pen stand has silicone here or rubber here for grip on the table. This is the Huion PW600L pen, which uses Pentec 4, and I will talk more about this later. This is the Huion ST300 tablet stand, and there are 4 cables included. This 3-to-1 cable will be included. So at this end, there is a full-size HTMI, 2 USB-A connectors. The black one is for data and the red one is for power. And at the other end, we have an L-shaped USB-C connector that goes to the pen display. This is a USB-A extension cable for power, and this is a USB-A to USB-C cable for power. So the red connectors are for power, and I will talk more about the 2 ways you can connect your computer to the pen display later. The first way is to use HTMI from the 3-to-1 cable, and the second way is to use the included USB-C to USB-C cable for video. And I almost missed out the 18-watt charger with USB-A port. So this may be needed if you cannot drive the pen display to maximum brightness. So this is the Huion Kamvas 16 Gen 3 pen display, and the build quality is quite solid, and you can see it's quite thin. Now even though it's really thin, this is actually not a tablet because there is no built-in battery and there is no OS. This is a pen display. This is actually a monitor that you can draw on, and since this is a monitor, you have to connect this to your computer in order to use it. So the pen display comes with this really nice matte textured glass. This is not a matte screen protector, so this is very unlikely to scratch with the pen, and you can see the corners of the glass are rounded off. Corners for the body are rounded off as well, and the edges are beveled slightly so they are not sharp. There are 6 customizable side buttons on the left and 2 wheels, and there's a button in the middle to switch between the functions for the wheel or the dial, and all the clicks for the buttons are firm, and that's the power button. There are grooves by the side of the dial, so you can turn the dial with your finger by the side or use your finger at the top. This is the back, which is made with plastic. It's matte textured and it feels nice, but it's quite susceptible to fingerprints. There are 4 rubber feet and 2 plastic feet, and the edges are curved slightly so that when the pen display is flat on the table, you can lift up the pen display easily. Let's take a closer look at the ST300 stand. So this is the flap that will hold the pen display, and this is made with metal. This back plate here is plastic, and the build quality is really solid, and this is very stable. There are 2 pieces of metal to help you prop up the plate. So I'm just going to go with the highest angle here, and let me place the pen display on top. And now let me show you how to connect the pen display to your computer. So you can use either HDMI or USB-C for video connection, and I'm going to use USB-C. Make sure the computer that you have can output video from the USB-C port, otherwise you will have to use HTMI. So I've just powered on the pen display with the power button, and this laptop is able to power this pen display with a single USB-C cable connection, so that is great. But let's see if we can actually power this to maximum brightness, because right now it's at 50%, and yes, this is 100% brightness. If you want to power the pen display using power from your laptop, this is going to drain the laptop battery quite quickly. So it's best to connect your laptop to power or connect the pen display to power. So now I'm going to connect the pen display to extra power, and I can see the charging icon appear. This battery charging icon seems to suggest there is power from the wall outlet to the pen display to the laptop, but here it says it's not charging the laptop. When I use this Coconut Battery Plus app to check the charging status, it says that it's charging with 5.7 watts, which is barely charging. If you're using a MacBook and there is a charging icon, you can actually close the lid of the MacBook and use this as your main and only display. If you want to use HDMI video connection, you have to use the 3-to-1 cable included. So let's use HDMI now. The HDMI will go to the computer. This black USB-A will also go to the computer, and thankfully you can detach the cable from the cable holder here so that you can spread out the cable to go to the other side if your port is on the other side. And this red one will go to power, and it seems like this laptop is also able to power the pen display, but I'm not sure if it's at maximum brightness. It looks bright enough. Okay, it is at maximum brightness, so you may not need to connect this to power. Okay, so I'm back to using USB-C to USB-C video connection, and I am using my own cable. This allows me to place the two displays as close as possible to each other. You can use any third-party USB-C video cable. If you are using macOS, there is something you need to know. The size of this pen display is 15.8 inches from what I have measured, and the resolution is 2560 by 1440. So currently I'm running at native resolution, and the UI elements such as the text, the icons, the words, the palettes, they look smaller than what I would prefer. Now, this size and resolution combination does not work well with macOS. It is possible to scale up the UI. So if you go into macOS system settings under display, enable show all resolutions, you will see that the high DPI option is not available to all the resolutions listed here. The best resolution to use here for this display size is actually the 1080p workspace, and if I choose this, you can see the text now becomes bigger, the icons are bigger, everything is bigger, but the text and the visuals, they look slightly fuzzy. So this is the problem with macOS. Let me show you the difference with sharpness before and after. So this is after, and this is before, which looks more fuzzy. And this is after, which looks slightly sharper, but there is still some softness, and that is due to the matte textured surface. And now let's talk more about the visual quality of this display. Since this was color calibrated at the factory, the colors do look good out of the box. Having said that, I still need to color calibrate this so that the colors can match my other displays. So I'm using the Spider X2 color calibrator to calibrate this, which I have already done so. These are the results. I measured color support for 100% sRGB, 86% NTSC, 90% Adobe RGB, and 94% P3. I measured maximum brightness of 240 nits with and without external power connected. So that's great, which means if I use a single USB-C video connection, I'm not missing out on extra brightness. I usually use my pen displays at around 150 to 200 nits of brightness, so maximum brightness of 240 nits with this is definitely more than sufficient for me. And the visuals look great before and after color calibration. Now 90% OWRGB is relatively color accurate, so that is good. 100% OWRGB would be great, but those displays with 100% OWRGB are usually significantly more expensive. This matte textured glass surface has anti-glare. By the way, this is an IPS LCD non-touch screen. Okay, so the anti-glare is quite aggressive in the sense that when there is strong light source, it's going to diffuse the reflection to the extent that the whole display looks white and glaring. So to get the best visual quality, it's best not to have strong light source pointing directly at the display. Now some light coming from the side, it's fine, just not too big a light source. The visuals look pretty sharp. However, because this is a matte textured surface, it will introduce some grain, color noise, or anti-glare sparkle. From what I can see, there is some hint of softness with the visual quality on the Kamvas 16 Gen 3, which is quite similar to the Kamvas Pro 19 4K display. Here's a close-up on the Kamvas 16 Gen 3, and there is slight softness. From 1 arm's distance away, the visuals look sharp enough to me, so I don't have any issues with the sharpness. And now let's see what you can do with the OSD. Just press and hold the power button for a few seconds and the OSD menu or settings will appear. You can control all these settings with the pen, but not your finger because this is not a touch screen. So these are the different display modes. This would be standard, gaming, movie, and user. So notice as I tap on some of the display modes, the brightness, contrast, and saturation will be locked. So if I select movie mode, which has higher brightness than user mode, the brightness will be locked here. If you use macOS, you can move the cursor onto the pen display and then use the keyboard shortcut to adjust brightness, so you don't have to use the OSD to adjust brightness even if the brightness is locked. Now with Windows, you can download this app called Twinkle Tray brightness slider, which is free, and you can access the brightness slider from the taskbar, and you can adjust brightness with external displays that are connected to your computer. Let's look at the driver. This is the macOS driver. The Windows driver should have similar features, except there is this additional Windows ink, which you may have to toggle on or off for troubleshooting if pressure is not working as expected. So on this page is where you can customize the 6 hotkeys and the 2 dials. Just press on the hotkeys or the dials to customize them. And here by default, the dial is set to zoom, adjust brush size, and scroll up and down. You can also customize keyboard shortcuts to the dial, mouse clicks, and other options. There are also pre-programmed shortcuts created for several apps such as Photoshop, Lightroom, Adobe Premiere, Clip Studio Paint, TV Paint, Animation. So let me just go back to set this as default and go to the hotkey. So you can customize keyboard shortcuts for the hotkeys. And there are more options here. There is also, if you want to use switch display, which I usually set to one of the pen buttons here, you have to go into Tools, Switch Screen. So now you can see the cursor is on the pen display. If I press this button, the cursor moves over to the other screen. If I press again, the cursor comes back. Just note that the pen has to be close to the display for switch screen or switch display to work. I usually set that to a pen button instead of the side button. Let's go to working area and can probably leave this as default. If you want to have the hotkeys and dial on the right side, you can rotate the orientation here by 180 degrees. And if for some reason the cursor is not directly beneath the pen tip, which means there is cursor misalignment, you can click here for monitor calibration. Let's look at the digital pen. So here there are actually two options, but Huion has only provided one pen, which is the PW600L pen. So just select the appropriate pen and click on the buttons you want to customize. So I'm going to customize this third button here. So let me just click here. You can create keyboard shortcuts, assign mouse clicks, and all these options. What I want to do is to set a quick menu, which is actually the default setting. Click here to customize. So here you can create your own keyboard shortcuts to this quick menu, which has 6 shortcuts. After you have created the quick menu, you can tap on the side button and this pop-up menu will appear. And after you activate a shortcut, the pop-up menu will disappear. But if you want the quick menu to be permanently on the screen, just click here to fix it. And now when you tap on the shortcuts, the menu will not disappear. So now you get 6 additional shortcuts on the screen. Under pressure setting is where you can customize the pen pressure. So you can control the pressure curve using the 3 control points, or you can select from the pre-programmed curves and test your pen here. If you click here under advanced setup, this is where you can set the maximum or minimum force required to draw a thick line. For example, if you're someone who draws with a very light touch, you may not want to press down that hard to draw thick lines, so you can actually pull the slider all the way to light. And now when you draw, you just have to press down very slightly to get the thicker lines. Whereas if you set this to hard, you have to press down really hard to draw the thicker lines. If you click here at the top right, you can add a program. Let's say you use Affinity Photo, so you can add Affinity Photo, and now you can create shortcuts specific to Affinity Photo. And you can add another program. Let's say Affinity Designer, and you can create another group of shortcuts for Affinity Designer. So the next time you launch Affinity Photo, all the shortcuts will automatically load for Affinity Photo, and if you switch over to Affinity Designer, all the shortcuts will update for Affinity Designer. And that's pretty much it for this driver. You can back up the shortcuts if you want to. Let's take a closer look at the Huion PW600L pen. This pen is well made, has solid build quality. The silicone grip is big and this is quite comfortable to hold. There are 3 customizable side buttons, no eraser at the back. This pen is not powered by battery, so no charging is required. This pen uses PenTech 4, so it supports tilt and 16,000 levels of pressure sensitivity. The pen tip is firm and has no movement at all. By the way, I have swapped out the black plastic pen tip with the felt tips. If you prefer a more tactile drawing experience, you can buy the Huion PN06F felt pen tips, which is selling for US $10 for 10 pieces. So this is not too expensive. Otherwise, you can just use the default plastic pen tips provided. This display is laminated, so there is no gap between the LCD and the glass. So when you're drawing, there is almost no gap between the line and the pen tip. Let's look at cursor tracking. So right now I'm holding the pen vertically, and I'm going to tilt the pen down to 45 degrees. And you can see the cursor is still directly underneath the pen. Let's tilt this down even lower, closer to the screen, and the cursor is still directly beneath the pen. So cursor tracking is pretty good regardless of how you hold the pen. Cursor tracking at the edge is also very accurate. Tilt sensitivity works fine, so the cursor can follow the direction of the pen, and tilt and pressure can work together at the same time. Let's look at latency performance. There is latency if you are looking for it, so you can see the line trying to catch up with the pen tip. The response time of this pen display is 14 milliseconds, and this is the typical amount of latency with most pen displays. When I am drawing or even writing, I don't really notice the latency, but when you are testing for it, yes, you can see it. Time for the line test. The app that I am using is Medibank Paint, and this is on macOS. Let's test the initial activation force. So this is how thick the brush is. It's quite thick. And I'm going to draw a slow diagonal line with minimal pressure. I am barely applying any pressure. Now the pen is very sensitive. I can see slight wobble, but this line is pretty straight to me. So let me just zoom out and maybe reduce the brush size and draw with a straight edge. Okay, so I have to reduce the brush size because for some reason when I draw with the straight edge, the lines are always thicker. And you can see there's 2 lines, 3 lines are perfectly straight. If I hold the pen all the way to the back and just rely on the weight of the pen to draw, I can get very thin lines. So this pen is really sensitive. This is how the lines taper. They taper very smoothly and sharply. And you can use this to create cross-hatching. Line transition from thin to thick. Thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thick. So this is good. Not all pens can draw very thin lines after drawing thick lines, but this pen can do so. Now when I am drawing this long continuous line with this app Medibank Paint on macOS, there is this split-second lag that creates the angled lines that you see here, here and here. Now this problem does not happen with other apps. And this problem only happens when you're drawing a very long continuous line. So if you're drawing short lines like this, no problem. Let's see if we can maintain consistent line width by maintaining consistent pressure, and we can do so. Let's draw some dots. The last test is the cursor misalignment test, where I will draw separate lines and join them together by looking at where the pen tip is instead of where the cursor is. Because when we are drawing, we are looking at the pen tip most of the time. So if there is any issue with cursor misalignment, we will see the lines overshoot, or we may see the lines leave gaps. So let's zoom in. So here's an example where the line overshoots slightly, but this is human error. Here you can see I can join the lines properly without overshooting and without gaps. And now I'm going to draw something while I talk more about the drawing experience. So this 15.8-inch display is a good size to work with for drawing. This is big, noticeably bigger compared to the Huion Kamvas 13 Gen 3. But this is also more expensive. This is almost 2 times more expensive compared to the Kamvas 13 Gen 3. Now if we compare the display size to A4 size paper or this sketch pad that I have here, You can see that the display is slightly shorter, but noticeably wider. So this is, I would say, bigger than A4 size paper. And there is space for palettes on the left and right, and you still get this amount of space, this canvas to work with for drawing. The UI elements are big enough, and I'm talking about the text sizes, the size for the icons. So on the smaller display, the text, the icons, the buttons are going to look smaller unless you scale up the UI. But if you scale up the UI, for example, if you scale up the size of the palette here, the amount of canvas space that's left with will be smaller on the smaller pen display. Now, when I am drawing, I don't actually use the hotkeys or the dial. I mean, they work fine. So if I press the middle button to switch between the functions, you can see that they do work. When I'm drawing, I actually do not use the hotkeys or the dials because I prefer to use my keyboard where I have access to all keyboard shortcuts. With the hotkeys, you only get 6 shortcuts, and even with the quick menu, that's an extra 6, so it's actually not enough for me. When you press the hotkeys, you get the firm clicking feedback, and when you roll the dial, you hear the audible clicking sound. Alright, let's start drawing. By the way, when you press the button in the middle of the dial, this label will appear to tell you which shortcut you are using. So let's zoom out. Let me just switch back to using my keyboard. Okay, so I have just moved to a new place, and let me just draw my room to show you around. This display is not a touch screen, which is a nice feature to have, but not having a touch screen is not a deal breaker for me. Definitely buy the felt pen tips if you can. It's not too expensive, it's just $10 extra, and you get 10 pieces, and you get like a more satisfying drawing experience, so it's worth the money. Okay, so the lines come out exactly the way I expect them to. Now this pen has excellent pen performance, so there are no surprises. And this pen is definitely good enough for creating professional artwork because it's accurate and sensitive. When I'm drawing, I don't really think about the latency. You will see latency if you're looking for it, but when you're drawing, when you're really into the mood, when you're in the zone, you don't really notice the latency. The stand is actually quite low on the table, so some people may not like that. Some people may want to, prop up the pen display higher and closer to you so that it's more ergonomic when drawing, so that you can sit with a straight back. The thing with this pen display is there is no VESA mount behind, so you cannot mount this on an arm. Yeah, so you can mount this on a stand that is elevated. Yeah, so this has to sit quite low on the table, but you can actually buy one of those laptop stands, those elevated laptop stands with a huge ledge beneath, so that you can hold the pen display so that it's not going to slide off accidentally. And those laptop stands, buy one with a big base, and those laptop stands will elevate the pen display higher so that it's more comfortable for you to draw on. So I bought several IKEA shelves to put inside the wardrobe because in the future I may want to use the wardrobe, and I can take out all these shelves which are removable. So right now the shelves have all my books and art supplies, and I have more shelves here, and also some slide out drawers here where I keep my watercolor. I have two tables here. So this is actually my study room. That's the door. Two tables, one for each daughter, and my work table is actually here at the corner. This is not a very big room. Yeah, unfortunately. Apartments in Singapore, or condos, public housing in Singapore, it's getting smaller and smaller. So this is the table that I brought over from my previous place. Let me just erase this here. I'm using the 50 pixel brush for drawing. Now, if you want to vary the pressure more precisely, you can customize the pressure curve using the Huion driver, or you can customize the pressure curve using the pressure settings with Clip Studio, which is the app that I'm using. And you can set the minimum or maximum pressure you want using the Huion driver as mentioned earlier. So with this 50 pixel brush, I have drawn all this. I did not need to adjust the brush size manually, because if I need to draw thinner lines, I just press down slightly to get the thinner lines. And I have bought a monitor riser. Let me just make this shorter. Yeah. Wow, this pen glides really smoothly on the display, but it's not slippery. Same applies to the plastic pen tip. Yeah. So you will still get a good amount of control when drawing. I like this monitor riser that I bought. It comes with drawers, and at the bottom you can have your mini PC. I have my USB dock, and what's this one? External drive, storage, and on top I have my monitor, a 27-inch monitor. I don't actually know how to draw this stand, so I'm just going to draw a generic stand for this monitor. Yeah, so the workflow is very smooth. I did not encounter any issues at all while drawing. The driver works fine. Yeah, probably need to erase this part here to make this longer. Yeah, so the matte surface feels really nice. So I can glide my hand, which is quite sweaty right now, on the surface quite easily, even though it's sweaty. But after each use, you will probably want to wipe off the fingerprints, because there are some fingerprints right now. Some grease from my sweaty palm. Okay, so this is my 27-inch monitor, which is quite old now, from 2017 if I remember correctly. Yeah, so I am able to join the lines without the lines overshooting. Let me just erase this part. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but as I am erasing, I can hear the tactile sound of the pen tip on the surface. I'm not sure what else I can say about this pen display. I have reviewed so many Huion pen displays over the years, and every year with every new release they would improve something. So this time with the Kamvas 16 Gen 3 they have improved it to the extent that it is actually quite difficult for me to find negative things to say. And this is not because the company provided this review unit to me that I can keep. It's because it really is quite difficult to find negative things to say. If you look at my reviews from years ago, you will see that the list of pros and cons is quite long, and there are many cons, but now the list of pros is way longer than the cons. Since I do not have many bad things to say, let me just talk about some things I wish I could see with future products. So the aspect ratio for this pen display is 16:9. I wish the aspect ratio could be 16:10 because given the fixed width, it would be good to have more vertical space, more vertical resolution to work with. But 16:9 is fine. And also it would be good if Huion can include felt pen tips as well. Just maybe include 5 will do. 5 felt tips and 5 plastic tips just for customers to try. Alright, let's have a look at my room. So I actually wanted to have sliding doors for the wardrobe, but these are the doors that open and close. You can see them here. Yeah, so this is not as convenient compared to sliding doors, because with sliding doors you can actually just slide it and keep the wardrobe open at all times, and this allows me to take my books and all the things I need to take from the shelves without having to open and close the doors all the time. I bought these 2 tables for my daughters, and these are so useful because there are 3 layers. This is the table, and these are the 2 shelves, so I can have all my boxes. The Huion box is actually up here right now. The cover for the box is here. I can have extra items here. I have my camera here, the lighting equipment here, a portable fan here. Oh, this pack board is really nice. I have several containers attached to the pack board. I can put my pens and stationery here. Oh, actually, I can put the stationery for my daughters here. I'm going to buy another one here to put here, and this is the outlet, the power outlet, extension outlet. That's my table. This is the rolling pedestal. I have my laptop here beneath the table. This is this table. Yeah, this is a portable folding table that I move around the room. So right now I have moved this table here, and I'm actually seated here to record my video because the window is here. So I need to move the table here so that there is light. I have another folding table here leaned against the wall, which I'm going to sell soon because this room is not that big, as you can see, but it's still noticeably bigger compared to my previous room, which looks like this. This is my computer table, and this is the folding table, and that's pretty much the space I had for the past 5 years before I moved to this new space where I am going to share with my 2 daughters. Here's another sketch that I drew. It's just line art. The line quality you can get from the pen is just fantastic. So if you are an artist who relies on line art, this pen and the pen display is going to give you really fantastic performance. And since you can get fantastic performance with line art, there is not going to be any issues with digital painting. This was drawn with Mini Bank Paint Pro, and I believe I used this 70 pixel brush, so I'm just drawing with minimal pressure to get the thin lines, and if I need to, I can just press down hard to draw the broad shapes just to fill in certain areas very quickly. Yeah, so this pen is really sensitive. I'm just barely glancing the pen on the display to get the thin lines. When I put the first line on the canvas with the pen, I know straight away that this is something pretty good. So the performance is identical to the smaller Kamvas 13 Gen 3, which is noticeably more affordable compared to this bigger model. So I mean, if you have the budget, 15.8 inch is a really good size to work with, but if you have a smaller budget, then maybe get the 13-inch Gen 3, which is one of the best pen displays from 2024. And this Kamvas 16 Gen 3 will be one of the best pen displays for 2025. And yes, I know I'm saying this in January 2025 at the start of the year, but I do feel like this is definitely going to be one of the best pen displays for this year. Before you go, I have a favor to ask from you. If you have the intention to buy this pen display, consider using the affiliate links that I have for you in the video description below to support my YouTube channel and the work that I do here. I get to earn some commission, but at no extra cost to you. And on the product page, I realized Huion has just released a new product, a new accessory. It's this foldable double layer stand. Let me just click here. Yeah, so remember earlier I said that this stand, the Huion ST300 stand, sits quite low on the table. Well, it looks like they have this new stand where you can actually elevate the pen display up to a more comfortable height. This is US $59.99, and this is the first time I'm looking at the product. I'm going to ask them for a sample so that I can review it, but this looks pretty good. I mean, it will be good because it's going to elevate the pen display to a higher height. So that stand is actually discounted 33% if you buy it as a bundle with this pen display. And the felt pen tips is $7.99 if you buy it as a bundle. Yeah, so those are the two accessories I would recommend if you have extra budget.